Okay, so it's Tuesday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the UK, and I'm going to have a look at how I trade Forex using Crossfire. So I'm just going to share my screen. And bear with me. So you should be able to see my trading view chart for Euro USD on the 15-minute chart. And basically, Crossfire, we looked at 4 pairs in the afternoon session. I'm just going to move that out of the way. So the four pairs we're going to look at this afternoon are the top 4 there. So the Euro US, Euro CAD, GBP US, and GBP CAD. We also do Crossfire at 6 a.m. UK time, and we do different 4 pairs, and it's those bottom 4 pairs there. And I also keep an eye on Euro US at that time of day as well. So basically what we do is in the afternoon session, we look at the 1 o'clock candle, which is this tiny red candle. And you can see that the previous candle was an indecision candle. It's got a long wick at the bottom and even longer wick at the top, and a very tiny body. That's illustrating that there's a lot of indecision going on, not a lot of movement in the previous 15 minutes. So this candle is looking as if it might be very similar, but we wait until this 15-minute candle closes. So we've got 10 minutes before we can go any further. Basically what we do is we put one green trend line above where prices at the minute. We put one red trend line below where prices at the minute. And when this 1 o'clock candle closes, we position these 2 trend lines accurately. And then we drop down to the 2-minute chart. So the thing that I do in every occasion is look for we look at the news, and if I can see what's going on, bear with me 1 second. We just need to move that out of the way. So I look at 2 sources of news. I look at forexfactory.com, and today's a pretty quiet day news-wise. There's nothing until 2:15, and that is a speech in the US, and then followed at 3 o'clock by a couple more speeches. Now, the point is that where the news is about numbers, we usually see some movement in price at the minute that the numbers are announced. But when there's a speech, it's a bit more vague than that, because whoever's speaking might say something dramatic at any point during the speech. So we're never absolutely sure when, if or when, there's going to be a price movement as a result of the news. What we can say is that we suspect that the big boys in the Forex market use the news to disguise the fact that they're manipulating price. So if I was to put a gun to my head and said, when do you think that this is going to happen, I would speculate that the red flag news at 3 o'clock is the point at which price manipulation, therefore price movement, is most likely to happen. But I can't guarantee that. It's just based on previous experience. That's how I'm thinking. So if I look at another source of news, you'll see that there's a lot of low-level news in the US. 1355, 1400, 1400. There's the same speeches at 2:15 and 3 o'clock. So I'm guessing that 3 o'clock will be the time when we see some price manipulation. Just need to get rid of that. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the chart. What I can do in the 7 minutes that I've got before this candle closes is I can look back at what happened this morning. So I'll go to Euro AUD, which I believe was the only one of the four cross-5 pairs that actually made a move this morning. So this was on the 15-minute chart. These are my two trend lines. Where this is, I'm looking for the 6 o'clock candle. That's the 6 o'clock candle, that tiny indecision candle, that one there. So we place a trend line from the nearest higher candle to touch the top of the wick, and then we went to the bottom of the wick and looked to the nearest lower candle, and that's how we position the trend lines. I'm going to zoom in a little bit further. I'm going to drop down to the 2-minute chart. I take most of my trades on the 2-minute chart. So I need to find that 6 o'clock again. There we go. So this is 6 o'clock. I'm going to put on 3 indicators. I'm going to put on straightforward Forex. I'm going to put on the 513.62 clouds. Now, I've recently removed the 5 moving average, so we're looking at the 13 and the 62 cloud. So that where you've got the red shading there, which we started off green shading between the two lines, and then the red shading. That's what I call the cloud, and these are the 5 moving averages. The red line, the green line is a 62 moving average, and the black line is a 200 moving average. So when I look at this chart this morning, I'm going to put another indicator on. There we go. So if I start by looking at where price was at 6:15, which is when that 6 o'clock candle closed, you can see that at 6:16, that candle there was actually still in no man's land. In other words, it was between the red trend line that I'd go on and the green trend line. So when price is built between those two trend lines, we never ever get in. We wait for it to either break above the green trend line, in which case we start looking for a buying opportunity, or we wait until it goes below the red trend line, in which case we'll start looking for selling opportunity. So that candle there, 622, the candle is below the red trend line, but I like the candle to have a gap between the candle itself and the red trend line before I get in. And the other thing that I'm looking at here is we were in a wave down starting at 504. So we've been in a wave down for a long time. Basically, the crossfire strategy is about some movement in price. And generally, I would look for price to change direction. Does not always do it. In fact, it didn't this morning, but that candle there wouldn't have tempted me in. And if I look down at this candle, this indicator down here, you can see that this is the water atta indicator, and basically we need the black line to be above the red line, and we need the histogram to be above the black line. We want the black line to be pointing away from the red line. So that is going to tell me to keep out. So I would have looked at that this morning and decided not to get in at that point. As it happened, price just more or less moved sideways for some time. And it wasn't until this candle here, which is the 754 candle, that I saw an opportunity to get in. And I'm just going to make that slightly bigger so you can see it clear. So what I was looking at that point was price had actually dropped below the red trend line. On that candle there, it dropped below the red trend line. There was a gap between the red trend line and the candle. We were in a wave down. We did have red pre-sales pushing price down, and we were also below the 200 moving average. The other lower moving averages, that's the green line, which is a 62, and the red line, which is a 13, were all in the correct sequence. So you have the 13, the 62, and the 200 in that order. And you can see that the cloud was red, indicating we should be looking at a sell. Now, looking down here, you can see that on that candle, we were in a good position because the black line was pointing away from the red line and the histogram was above the black line. There would be one doubt in my mind, and that is that when prices where it was at that point, it wasn't too far from the green trend line, and quite often that green line presents some resistance, or should I say it's presenting support, but quite often price will come down to that green line and then start to go back up again. As you can see, as it happens, it went past it and then decided to go back up again. But we were looking at a good selling situation down here. We were looking at a good selling situation up there. There had been a bearish engulfing candle on the previous candle, and I was able to take a stop loss, which was 4.6 pips, and that was at the top of that candle. Now, 4.6 is a little bit tight on euro Australian dollar at 6 in the morning, but everything else seemed good. So I got in at that point, and to get get in at that point, it went down to risk to reward of 0.63, and in fact that wouldn't have given me one to two. So that was a losing trade for me to get. I'll actually put that in the wrong place, haven't I? That's as far as it went, and it was only 0.63, so it wasn't a valid trade, not in my eyes anyway. So I'm going to take that off there, and I'm going to just have a quick look. We're sort of at the time where we need to look at that this afternoon session, but I'm going to quickly look at Euro US this morning. So this was Euro US, and really briefly, we're in a wave down. At this point, we're below the red trend line. We're also below the 200, and we're also below the green trend line, which is coming down here. So we're below all the major obstacles. The 13 is below the 62, which is below the 200. So they're all the right sequence. Now, there was a little bit of a scare on this one because the stop loss was just on that red trend line, and price went almost up to that red trend line, and then it started to come down. So we had a bit of a scare this morning on that one because it looked as if it might take us out. But this one actually went to a risk to reward of 1 to 2. You have to be patient because it took from just before 8 o'clock to exactly 9 o'clock when it actually hit the 1 to 2 risk to reward. Okay, so I'm going to now have a look at this afternoon's session. I'm going to go back up to the 15-minute chart. I'm going to remove those 3 indicators, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to zoom in to where my trend lines are. So we need to find the 1 o'clock candle. It's that one there. So we're going to position these two trend lines accurately. So when I'm looking at the top of the 1 o'clock wick and looking left, I can see that that's the next higher candle. And when I look at the bottom of the 1 o'clock candle, I got that wrong. It's from that one to that one, and then from the bottom of that one down to that one. So I need to position those as accurately as possible. What I do to enable that is I put on the magnet tool, and then I take so this is the 1 o'clock candle. Looking at the bottom and looking left, I need to position it on that next candle, and then move this trend line so it touches the wick, the bottom of the wick on the 1 o'clock candle. There we go. So I'm touching the bottom of the wick on the 1 o'clock, and I'm touching the nearest lower candle. Looking at the top of the 1 o'clock and looking left, I need to be on that candle there. So the magnet tool just helps it to snap into position. And then I just drag that down to touch the top of the 1 o'clock wick. And I do that with all 4 pairs and then drop it down to the 2-minute chart. So the trend lines are put in position on the 15-minute chart. Just double check that's the 1 o'clock candle. It's a little bit smaller. So that's the 1 o'clock candle there. I'm looking left from the top of the wick and looking to find that one is the nearest higher. And looking left from the bottom, that one is the same distance, the same height. So what I need to do in that case is look back, look left, and I can see that that was the start of today's session, and the price hasn't been any lower so far today. So we need a horizontal trend line, and we're just going to move that up so that it touches the bottom of that 1 o'clock wick. And then we need to drag this one down so it touches the top of the 1 o'clock wick. Okay, so that's 2 pairs. GBP USD. Make it a bit smaller. So that's the 1 o'clock candle. Looking at the top and looking left, I need to be on that candle there because that's the nearest higher candle. And at the bottom, looking left again, that one there. And then I need to drag that and the last one, GBP card. So that's the 1 o'clock candle. I'm looking at the top of the 1 o'clock and I'm looking left and I'm seeing that one is the nearest higher candle. Looking at the bottom, looking left, the next candle is lower. Okay, so I've set up all the trend lines on all 4 pairs. I need to knock off the magnet tool. I need to drop down the 2-minute chart. And I need to add my indicators. So straightforward Forex. the cloud, and the water atta. Let's try that again. Okay, so just going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. So price was in no man's land. It's now come out of no man's land. It's gone above the green trend line. But can you see that it's actually rejected off the 200 moving average? So we're in a wave up. We've got Greenpeace are pushing price up, and price does seem to want to be moving, continue moving up, but it's struggling to get past that 200 moving average. I would wait for price to break past the 200 moving average. I would wait for there to be a gap between the candle and the black line, which is the 200, and then I would reassess. But basically what I can see is that the 13 moving average, the red line, the 62 moving average, the green line, are not in the correct sequence for a buy. We've got a red cloud, so there's conflicting information coming out on this chart. There's also the chance that when price breaks past this 200 moving average, it may well, doesn't have to, but may well bounce off that yesterday POC. So we leave that for now. If we put the water atta on, you can see that this is telling me that at that point, the black line was hiding behind the red line. At the current point, this one here, it's shaping up for a buy. If this histogram was a dark green, I might be tempted to get in, but looking up there, I still wait for price to get past that 200 moving average. It went up to it, it came back down from it, it's now trying to break past it. It's just not making a significant move. Now, the other thing about Crossfire is that every day at about, normally at exactly 1:30, there can be some price movement. So in 5 minutes' time, we might see a move up or a move down. And that's to do with the fact that the New York market has just opened and they can often do some price manipulation. So GBP CAD, GBP USD. So just going to say what I see. We're above the green trend line. We are in a wave up, and we do have Greenpeace are pushing price up. Now, those green blocks there are the wave blocks. So the wave blocks were red and getting smaller, and then they leveled out and almost disappeared, and now they're getting bigger, but they are green. So that's indicating a potential rise in price. However, you've got the 13 moving average, the red line, and the 62 moving average, both below the 200 moving average, and the 200 is pointing downwards. So that is sort of saying we're in a downtrend. This is saying we're in an uptrend, and price itself is just moving sideways. I'm looking at this chart and I'm thinking that price might go up to that 200 moving average, the black line, and then it may reject and come back down. And even if it gets past that 200, there's a chance that it might reject off yesterday's POC, which is that dashed line there. And then the final thing I look at is the water atta, and you can see that the black line is hiding behind the red line. And on the current candle, we don't have a green histogram. So we don't have a dark green histogram, it's a pale green, and that's not good for a buy. So once again, we need to leave that alone. And also we need to bear in mind it's 2 minutes to 1:30. And we might just see a move at 1:30. So this one has come out above the green trend line, so I'm thinking buys, but the cloud is red. The 13, the red line, is below the 62, the green line, which is also below the 200. So all of that is telling me that we're in a downward trend. However, we're in a wave up. We've got green PSARs and we've got green wave blocks. So contradictory evidence there. And then just to look down here, I see that the black line is actually below the red line, and that's not good for either a buy or a sell. So we just have to wait. If I look at Euro US, very similar to Euro CAD, 200 moving average pointing down, 62 moving average pointing down, 13 moving average sort of moving sideways. But we are in a red cloud situation. We've been in a red wave block situation. They've now just turned to green, but they're not particularly big. And we're in a wave up with green PSAR. So again, contradictory information. And the thing that would keep me out of any trades is the fact that the black line is below the red line. So I'm just going to sit and wait on Euro US until this candle closes. So we've got about 10 seconds left. So there's a new candle just appeared there. That one. That's the 1:30 candle. Now, because there wasn't any news, it might just be an insignificant move. There again, it sometimes moves drastically even when there isn't any news. So 1:30 is a crucial time. We just need to wait and see what happens. And it looks as if the answer is nothing much. Basically, what I'm seeing here is sideways movement. Price went up, it came down, it went sideways, and it started to go back up again, but not moving particularly strongly. There is a dashed line there which is indicating a break of structure point. So price would have to get above that point there to break structure. So we're in a downward movement at the minute, and if price gets into an upward movement, it will have to have broken past that dash line. There's a dash line below as well, so that's saying to confirm we're in a downward movement, it would have to break past that dash line there. So it's actually not doing anything at the minute. It's just moving sideways. And this is keeping me out because the black line is below the red line. So we've had almost 2 minutes since the 1:30 mark. I'm going to wait for this next candle to open and see if it gives us any information. So there's a new candle, and it's really just continuing that sideways movement. So the important things to look for on Crossfire, the first thing I look for is price above the green trend line, in which case I start thinking buys, or is it below the red trend line, in which case I start thinking sells. That's the first thing I look for. Now in this situation, we're above the green trend line, so I immediately think buys. Then I start looking for further confirmation. We're in a wave up, and we've got green PSARs pushing price up. We've also got green wave blocks here, getting bigger. They were tiny there. This one's a bit bigger. They're not as big as they were when they were coming down here, but they are starting to get bigger. So price may be wanting to go up. I look at the 3 moving averages. So just to recap, we've got the black line, which is the 200 moving average. I notice that that's pointing downwards, indicating we're in a downward trend. There's the 62 with the green line, and that's also, well, it was pointing down, it's sort of moving sideways now. And the red trend line is a 13 moving average that was pointing down, but it's now pointing up. So we could be in for a change of direction. We still would have a red cloud, and what it takes for the red cloud to become a green cloud is for the red trend line to cross over the green trend line, and then you'll get a green cloud. And then if price continues to move up, we will end up with a 200 sort of moving sideways, but you'll have the 13 and the 62 above the 200. That would confirm to me that we're in a buying situation. However, the final thing that I look for is the water atta. And I always want the black line to be above the red line. I want it to be pointing away from the red line. And I want the bar or the histogram with a dark green and above the black line. So black line above the red line, histogram above the black line, and a dark green rather than a pale green. So you can see that price was trying to get up. It's come as far as the 62 moving average, and it's finding some resistance there. Slightly longer term of this afternoon, I'm thinking that if price gets above the 200 moving average and it finds its way into the yellow shaded area, which is what I call my field of play, there is then the chance that price will go up to yesterday's POC, which it very often does. Once it's in the field of play, it does seem to be attracted by yesterday's POC, and it can keep going back to yesterday's POC. So I'm just going to measure, just out of interest, how far that distance is, or how many pips there are from the edge of the field of play to yesterday's POC. And there's just over 9 pips in that move there. So I'm thinking that if price does move up and it gets into my field of play, it will have come past my 200 moving average. And by then, the 62 and the 13 may well be above the 200, and then we're in a good situation to get in for a buy, and we have a target up there. And the pippage between the edge of my field of play and yesterday's POC, we've just measured is just over 9 pips. So we can get a decent move there. It will depend on where my stop loss would need to be. At the minute, you see this green line here, that's pointing out that there's an engulfing candle there, an engulfing green candle. And if it remains an engulfing candle, that line will remain. And that is a good suggested position for a stop loss. There is another one down here. So when we come to thinking about getting in, I'll be looking at these green lines, which indicate the bottom of an engulfing candle. And I'll be measuring that. And if I can get on Euro US, the spread, the broker spread is quite tight. It's normally, you can normally get away with a stop loss as low as 3 pips. So in that case, if we were going for a 1 to 2 move, we could get away with 3 pip stop loss and a 6 pip take profit. And that 6 pips would be within, would still be within that potential target. So I'm looking forward to price getting above the 200, and then I'll reassess it. I want this black line to be above the red line and pointing away from it, and I want everything else to be in the right order. So Euro US, again, we're just moving sideways, and that's an indication that the big boys basically are sitting on their hands, and we may well have to wait until 3 o'clock before there's a significant move. So it's 13.38. So I'm going to go back through the pairs, see if there's anything moving. And then I'm going to go through how I'm going to handle this situation this afternoon. So I don't want to be sitting watching the screen for the next 2 hours. So here we go. We're above the green trend line. That's number one. So I'm thinking buys. I'm in a wave up. So I'm still thinking buys. I've got green PSARs pushing the price up. Thinking buys. I've got green wave blocks getting bigger. They were small here, they're getting bigger. Again, that's confirming I should be looking for a buy. However, there's a number of things against that. Price is just rejected off the 200 moving average. We need price to break past the 200 moving average. It's pointing down. We want it to start pointing upwards, ideally. We'd like the 13 to cross over the 62, and we'd like the 13 and the 62 to have crossed over the 200. And then we'll come down here, and if this black line is pointing away from the red line and the histogram is dark green and above the black line, then we'll seriously think about getting in for a buy. At the minute, price is coming down. Again, thinking longer term, there's quite a small distance between the edge of the field of play and yesterday's PLC. We'll just measure that out of interest. Yeah, that's less than 3 pips, so maybe that's not such a good target to go for. We've got 1 or 2 obstacles in our way first anyway, so we'll leave that for now. GBP USD going the opposite way, so just going to do a bit of thinking out loud. We are below the red trend line, so I'm thinking sells. I can confirm that by the fact that we are below the 200 moving average, which is pointing downwards. The 62 moving average is below the 200 and pointing downwards. The 13 is below the 62 and pointing downwards. So that's all saying we're good to get in for a sell. We've got a red cloud. That's again another confirmation. We've also got red wave block. We had green wave blocks. They've now changed to red wave block. Against that is the fact that we've got the green trend line, which can offer resistance, or in this case, it will be support. Price might just sort of cling to that green trend line. There's also a break of structure indication here. So ideally, I would want price to break past that break of structure, and then I'm definitely in a downward trend. And then I would come down here. I would want the black line to be above the red line, and I'd want the histogram to be above the black line. So that's not quite ready yet, but that one is looking more like a sell than a buy. GBP card, again, we look more like a sell than a buy because we're below the red trend line. That's number one. Number two, we're in a wave down. Number three, we've got a green, so we've got a red PSAR pushing price down. We've got a red wave block. We've got the 200 moving average pointing very slightly downwards. We've got the 62 and the 13 moving average, both pointing downwards and below the 200. So everything up there is confirming we should be looking for a sell. However, price is clinging to the green trend line. And we've got a break of structure indication here. So I would be looking for price to break away from the green trend line and ideally break past that break of structure line. I'd also be looking for the black line to be above, not only above the red trend, but the red dead zone line, but to be pointing away from it. And I want the histogram to be a nice dark red and above the black line. So nothing happening there. If price is going to come down, one of the things that you can do just to have a bit of a sanity check is go up to a higher time frame. So I'm going to go to the 15-minute time frame, and I'm going to look at what's happened to the left. So that's where price is now. I can see on the 15-minute chart, the 200 moving average is just below where price is now. I'm going to measure that. So there's about 6 pips. Probably not enough for me to get 1 to 2 because it's likely to bounce off that 200 moving average. It might break past it, and it might come down to that level there because it's been down there before. And then it came down there and it went back up again. Now there's a long wick there, look. So it's been down there and rejected. So there's a potential for price to come down to that sort of level. If I put the imbalance indicator on, you can see that there is imbalance. These black candles are imbalanced. So there is imbalance down to the bottom of that candle. The price is there. It could well come down and mitigate that imbalance. There isn't any other imbalance. Not today anyway. Maybe yesterday. There's some imbalance. So what you could do is you could mark that and you could say there's imbalance to be taken out there. So price went up at that point. That's actually the weekend, isn't it? That's Friday night and that's Monday morning. So there was a big gap between where price ended on Friday to where it started on Monday. So there is some imbalance there. However, it looks as if that week took out that imbalance. But there's obviously something about that area, that line there, something of interest. So price could go down, or it could go up and take out yesterday's POC. All we can do is just sit and wait. So I'm on the 15-minute chart. I need to drop back down to the 2-minute chart and take all of my trades on the 2-minute chart, or sometimes even on the 1-minute chart. As you can see on the 1-minute chart, we're pretty much moving sideways. Not a lot of movement. The thing to sort of keep an eye on is price has been up there and it's been down to there. So there's about 8 pips from top to bottom. Not really enough to get us interested. If you come down to there, there's 11 pips, not really enough to be interested. And it's just moving sideways. There you've got some downward movement, so maybe there's going to be a retracement up past yesterday's PLC, back up to those sort of levels. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen. We can only wait for them to make a move. So basically, on the 2-minute chart, we have got stuck in between the two trend lines again. And there's not really enough room to profit. If you took a trade from the red trend line down to the green line, there wouldn't be very many pips. I'm okay with getting into a trade between the two trend lines, providing there's a sufficient room to maneuver. So over here, there would be enough room to maneuver, but right now, I can imagine price is going to go down to that green trend line and then go back up to the red trend line and then back down to the green trend line and keep on doing that until it makes a move. So there's nothing going on down here. what at the black line is pointing downwards and it needs to be pointing upwards. So in GBP CAD, basically we've just moved sideways for the last hour or so. Nothing of any interest there. We need a bold movement. We need price to come outside those two trend lines in one direction or another. Either down below for a sell or up above for a buy. But then you've got this as a resistance. If it gets built above that resistance, it might well go up to the top end of the field of play. But it's not doing anything right now. That's very similar. It's in between the two trend lines. It's respecting the green trend line. If and when it goes up, it will start to respect the red trend line. The distance is a bit more acceptable on this one, I'm thinking. So where we are now, there's about 5 pips distance there. By the time we get over here, we might have a more interesting situation where if we got in for a buy, we could be going up to that red trend line. If the price is up there and we're getting in for a sell, it will probably reject when it gets to that green trend line. So as time goes by this afternoon, that will become more acceptable. But this is just telling me to keep out. Sideways movement, basically, up and down. We're above the green trend line. We're in a wave up, but we're in a downward trend. We've got red PSARs, we're in a wave down. So some downward indications, even though we're above the green trend line. So again, nothing going on there. And the last pair, yeah, we're above the green trend line, but we're in a downward trend. The 200's still moving down. We've got red PSARs. We're in a wave down. So very much contradictory. And that is definitely going to keep me out there. So all I can do is just remind you that if you look at forexfactory.com, there was no news. There's some 2:15. There's a speech which starts at 2:15 on the affecting the US dollar. But there's a more important speech starting at 3 o'clock. I suspect that will be the time when we see some movement. So I'm probably going to have to sit on my hands until 3 o'clock and then see what happens after that news. Bear in mind that this is about, well, it's Fed Chair Powell testifies, so it's obviously quite an important event because it's red flag. There's also a orange flag, another speech there. So I'm thinking that we need to focus on 3 o'clock this afternoon. So I'm going to call it a day because we're just watching paint dry at the minute. There's nothing happening on that there. There's nothing happening on that there. Nothing on that there. Nothing on that there. So I'm going to end this session. Thanks for jumping on. I'm going to put the replay in Discord for anybody who wants to watch it. It's also in YouTube on my channel. So thanks for jumping on. I'll catch you later. Bye.